Good to be back here again at Warwick Farm. I think just while we're waiting, the siren is gone, where time is running out very rapidly before we see the start of this international 100-mile race. As Norman has said, the 6th in the 8th races, counting towards the Tasman Cup Championship. Well, now, there's been plenty of drama overnight. Chris Amon yesterday afternoon, who's qualified, there he is standing there on the right of the picture talking to the Italian mechanic. They're still working on his car. He's standing down on the grid. This is one of the most remarkable feats, especially from as far as the boys concerned and his team. They rebuilt one engine, the engine that had blown up last week at Surfers Paradise, and changed an engine last night. They've worked for about 36 to 40 hours continuously, and there it is, the red Ferrari has just poked its nose up on the outside of the track, car number 4. And Amon just climbing into it, the Tasman Cup leader at this stage with 27 points to Jimmy Clark's 24. Then we've got another engine change that took place last night was Jack Brabham. Jack Brabham, who had in his car, he's on the, as we told you, well back, he's on the 4th row of the grid, and he had real troubles too with his lightweight Repco Brabham engine, and this they had to change, and they were out doing some practice earlier on this morning at one of the other circuits here in Sydney, and he's on the line, good, so to say, but with a time of 1:30, and this is a position that you very, very rarely see Jack Brabham on the 4th row of the grid. Well, they're starting to warm them up now, the large crowd down here on the start-finish line. You can see, get some idea of how the heat is here with the big umbrella being taken away. I think a very notable thing is the 2 1600cc cars of Denny, Hulme and Piers that are on the 2nd row of the grid, with 1 minute to go now in the International 100. The 6th of the series, a very critical race. I'm sure one of the best we're ever going to see. They're just kidding everybody back. Many, many people here today. One of the largest crowds ever, I'm sure. A terrific Italian influence with the Ferrari on the front row of the grid. Amon's ready to go. Looking now alongside of him is Graham Hill. Jimmy Clark, who recorded a 1 minute 27.4. He's just getting things set up. He shouldn't be very long to go. These two very, very powerful Lotus 49 Fords, and there's someone in front of Clark. He's waving them aside to see the starter's flag. The 1.6 litre cars of Courage and Hulme are ready to go. The rest of the field are there. They shouldn't be very long now before we see flag drop. We're waiting for the flag to drop at Warwick Farm. A beautiful day, absolutely terrific. Shouldn't be long now. The seconds are ticking away now. There's about 5 seconds to go now. It shouldn't be long before we see them racing. You'll see the smoke come off the tyres, and there they're racing. And away goes Clark on the inside from Hill. He's poking him out as present. Amon's tucked in behind Hill now as away they go, out through the first of the right-hander. So it's Jimmy Clark showing the way right off the line, right from the start, with Graham Hill buttoning in behind him. Then we've got Amon in the Ferrari. We'll try and pick them up for you. The rest of the field streaming away in single file now as they come down into the dip for the run down Hulme Straight.
And running through the numbers as the teams go through, the number 1 is Denny Hulme, number 2 Jack Brabham, number 6 is Jim Clark, number 3 Johnny Harvey, number 4 Chris Amon, and now in quick corner the leader is number 6, and that's Jim Clark. Number 7 is Greg Cusack, number 8 Frank Gardner, 9 is Kevin Bartlett, 10 Leo Gagan, 11 Pedro Rodriguez, 12 Rick Attwood, 17 F Gibson, 18 Piers Courage. They're the main contestants in the 2.5 litre class. And already the team tactics are starting to play off. Look at Graham Hill there. He's blocking every approach from the red Ferrari of Amon. It's Hill now in 2nd place in car number 5. Clark trying to make the break on the field now. There's definitely team play here as they go through, and we see them heading in. See, look, there's Hill taking a short line, trying to keep the Ferrari back. But it's Jimmy Clark at this stage from Graham Hill as they go into the right-hander for the approaching the hollow corner. Round they go in a very nice line indeed. They're still running single file. Amon made a bid just a while ago down the main straight. Didn't quite get away from it. But it's Clark now with right and handy to him is Hill. And there's the red Ferrari in behind. It's Courage in behind them now. And there's a run there. And Courage goes past Amon as Amon went wide. So Courage took a very nice tight line, got through on the inside of the corner, and so he has now hit 3rd place in the 1.6 litre McLaren Cosworth Ford. Round he goes through the cutting with the Ferrari in behind. Amon could be just in a little bit of trouble, setting things up, a new engine in the car, but getting it away now as down they go now. It's the 2 Lotus Fords of Jimmy Clark coming down to us in single file now. Someone pulling out for a run down there. It's Graham Hill. This could be still a tactic from Amon. He could be quite happy to be in 4th place at this stage because as Hill is effectively blocking Courage, Amon just might find the gap and go through it. But this we'll have to wait and see. The 5th car at this
stage is Denny Hulme. There goes the leader. Undershot, setting up for the corner. There's Courage in car number 18 in the 1.6 litre McLaren. Right in behind is the 2.4 V6 Ferrari. Coming in now, the two Lotuses not making much of a break at the stage. Clark maybe just a little in front of on time, but there's pulling up very close to the business. Young London driver, here's Courage as he had this great duel last week, and there they go out of the causeway, setting up for the right-hander again, swinging out to the outside of the track, chopping the apex of the corner. Coming through now, there you can see him motoring extremely fast indeed. It's the 2.5 litre cars of Jimmy Clark and Graham Hill, keeping out this 1.6 litre car, and Amon tucked in behind him there, coming a little wide out of that corner. Jimmy Clark now by about 25 yards in front. Courage making another bid to go through up on the outside. We're waiting for them to come into view, and here they come now, down Hulme straight. Look how they're clipping the edge down there as they make the entry through that very fast right-hander that Graham Hill said was very, very important. Here's Amon going down the straight. He's looking for a line past him, can't find it. He's probing all the time. Car number 4 coming in onto the screen. There's Courage there, and there's the Ferrari right in behind him. The leaders swing through. There's the leader, Jimmy Clark, Graham Hill behind him, then Courage, Piers Courage going through car 18. In behind is the Ferrari. There's Denny Hulme, tucking in behind the Ferrari for a tow in his 1.6 litre Brabham Ford. Swinging round in fine style indeed, Jimmy Clark, winner of the 1968 South African Grand Prix. He won 4 World Championship Grand Prix last year, in fine form in the Tasman Series. He's 3 points behind Chris Amon, who's lying in 4th place now on the championship table, as they go in now round into Polo Corner. The 2 Lotus 49s are running very well indeed. Here we go now. This is the 3rd and 4th car swinging. There's Amon clipping the edges, but getting on the power, looking at the back of the mirrors there for Denny Hulme, who's right in behind him. Had a very much happier time at practice this time, Denny Hulme. Recorded a very, very fine time yesterday of 1:28.6, the same as Piers Courage. But we see them now, they're setting up once again for the run down the straight. Motoring along down through here at about 130 miles an hour as they approach us. Swinging into our camera point. There's the braking. Jimmy Clark on the braking. Watch the noses dip down as they go onto the braking. Set up for the right hand. A very, very tricky corner. Graham Hill mentioned about 30 miles an hour through Creek Corner.
First driver to come into the pits was car number 7, Glenn Cusack, was into the pits for a few moments, and it was 25-7 stoppage because by lack of brakes, and the order after 3 in front, car 6, Jim Clark, 2nd car 5, Graham Hill, 3rd car 18, Piers Courage, 4th car 4, Chris Amon, and 5th car 1, Denny Hulme. Now we have the clock on Clark here as he comes round on the 4th circuit of the course. That record stands at 1:29.9. We got Clark at 1:30 exactly in his 2nd lap. As he comes round Polo, the clock's coming up to about 1:22. He's going to go very close here to setting a new lap record, and be the 4th lap. In the practice yesterday, he did 1:27.4, which was 2.5 seconds better than the record, but looks like this is going to be a fairly slow one, or is there something wrong with the clock? Yes, my clock stopped, so we'll have to get a new stopwatch.
Jimmy Clark, once again, 2.5 litres. You'll see him getting the power and going through the corner, just moving the tail nice in a classic style. So the gap after 3 laps, the time situation was that Clark was 1 second in front of Graham Hill, and Hill is 1.5 seconds in front of Courage. There's the first 3, the time difference between the first 3. And I think that we're staying. There's Amon going down the outside of Hill. There's Clark on the picture. We'll just see who gets into the corner. Just looking for it. Clark getting the tail wagging on there. Through they come. Amon trying to get the acceleration on the V6 Ferrari down through these corners. There's Hill going in. Courage making a bid past him, but Hill keeping him out very well indeed. Those Lotuses are about 40 feet wide when you're trying to get past them like this. Very, very big wide cars, wide wheels on them, and they're filling up the little tight circuit here very much at this stage. Courage making a probe on the corners. You'll see where the 1.6 litre car of his and Denny Holmes can make up quite a bit of ground. There's a bit of braking going on by Denny Holmes right up behind the Ferrari. There's the Ferrari coming through the causeway. Car number 4, Chris Amon. And there's a change. Dipping in on the outside is Courage. He's on the wrong line for the corner. I think Hill might keep him out, but Courage is keeping it in. But Hill, no, there it is. He was, and there's Amon going past him. A mistake by Courage. Tried to have a go on that corner there. Didn't quite make it. And the Ferrari now flashes through into 3rd place. So it is Jimmy Clark, Graham Hill, and there's Amon. And this duel going on. So this is really motor racing. They're motor racing at the toppest of you could ever see anywhere. It's World Championship Grand Prix motor racing definitely here as they go through. There's Clark going over the causeway. Graham Hill, and here he is swinging into view. Coming into the dip now. You'll see the heat rising off the road as they come through. The on-track temperatures today very, very high indeed.
And big news, Bill, Jack Brabham, who started on 10th place on the grid, has now moved up to be 6th. Jack Brabham has moved into 6th place. He just went past Pedro Rodriguez, and he's behind the big 5. And as they stand, we have Clark, Hill, Amon, Courage, and then Hulme. And Jack Brabham has moved up, and he's chasing, coming right through from the rear of the grid, and that's great news for Australia, because Jack, who was out on the Oran Park circuit this morning, now has the car moving properly, and he's going to be really in contention.
Well, yes, this is what we want to see, of course, Norman. We want to see this real Brandeis going on. It's Jimmy Clark now. I've never seen them so close together. There's 6 cars there, and I guarantee about 2 seconds covering them all after about 7 laps or so. And there's Greg Cusack back on the circuit. Coming in now, we've got into the picture, is Jack Brabham. Here's one of the BRMs, Pedro Rodriguez, just going over the causeway, quite a way back at the stage. We're just waiting to get the placings. He'd be right in behind Brabham at this point. There he is, the little Mexican driver, number 1 for BRM in 1968, the World Championship. And after 5 laps, the situation is that Jimmy Clark is leading by 1 second. It's 2 seconds behind Graham Hill in 2nd place. There is Chris Amon in the Ferrari. 3 seconds behind him is Piers Courage. Then we have another 3.5 seconds behind Courage is Denny Hulme. And then we've got, did have Rodriguez, but he's been passed by Brabham. And here's the change. Here's the change. The 2 Lotuses coming down into the braking area together, but it's Clark. And look at Amon there. He's sitting up, and there's Brabham going through. Coming in now into the picture, Jack Brabham. There he is, Rodriguez. Now this is not the V12 he's driving.
Pressure high enough to get the car running well, you know. Sometimes the car runs well for 10, 15 laps, and then suddenly start missing again. But that's why we cannot really tell in a practice section like this, because you don't have enough laps, you know. Well, it's a little bit heavier and big one, this car, for this track, you know. But we hope to get it run properly, and it can do a very good performance.
Behind Gardner.
And the change in order now, we have number 6 is Jim Clark in front, then Graham Hill in 5. Number 4 is Chris Amon in 3rd place. Number 18 is running 4th, Piers Courage. Then we see that Frank Gardner in car 8 has moved up into 5th place, ahead of car number 1, Denny Hulme. And Jack Brabham has come right through about 5 or 6 drivers to be running next. So the order in car number is 6, 5, 4, 18, 8, 1, 2, with 11 coming next. But here we see the leader, Jim Clark, coming through the causeway. And what great racing it is. That's Graham Hill. Then number 4 is is Chris Amon and Piers Courage, and those four are making a great race of it out in...
And there's definitely the front running of Clark, and Graham Hill has set a new lap record. It's Graham Hill who set the lap record of 1 minute 29.1. He's moved up on Clark, and right with him went the Ferrari driver Amon. So they're all very, very close together there now. And it's Pedro Rodriguez, who was driving car 11, who's driving the 2-litre BRM, which Jackie Stewart drove last year. It's this type of car, whether it's the identical chassis or not. And there's the go by Courage. He's really pressing Amon at this point, trying to get past him. Improved immensely out of sight through the Tasman Cup Series is the young Londoner, Piers Courage, and going extremely well indeed. But here they come, and they're starting to lap the tail enders now, so this could be very interesting. Jimmy Clark, very, very good through traffic, and here they come right round the outside. Clark had to go the outside. Amon went the short way, and there's the blue flag being waved, keeping the tail enders out. Coming through, 5 is Hill, 6 is Clark. There they are, they're nose to tail. This pressure must break somewhere along the line. They just can't keep the speed up. The placings we've got now is that Jimmy Clark is still in front by 1 second to Graham Hill. Then we've got Chris Amon behind him. Piers Courage is in 4th place. Frank Gardner's moved up to be 5th. Very, very good effort indeed in the 2.5-litre Alpha Brabham. Denny Hulme in the 1.6-litre Repco Brabham Ford. And then we've got Jack Brabham. So there they are. They're all there racing. The only 2 notable ones out of it. We've got Dickie Attwood, who isn't even anywhere near competitive in the V12 BRM. And Pedro Rodriguez, who's a long way back now. So the internationals are really in it. There's no Australian challenge at this point from a resident Australian, which we thought we might see. And there's Gardner using the full power of the 2.5-litre Alpha, trying to get past Courage there for 3rd place to attack, at least 4th place to start attacking Amon, who doesn't seem to be having a very happy time with the car's handling. This could be through to the lack of practice he did. But here it is, they're still hanging on to the leaders at this point. It's still Jimmy Clark in the car that he won 3 World Championship races with last year. And look, they're going into the break-in. Once again, a slower driver on the critical part of the course at Creek Corner. Into the right-hander, very, very sharp hairpin corner here. It's number 21, it's Ian Ferguson. Now here we come, we can see him coming through Jimmy Clark. The slower car keeping out of the way. Hill cuts through the apex of the corner. Where's Amon? He's in there somewhere, we just can't quite pick him up. Coming through. It's quite a mix-up of cars now as they lap in. There's Amon, car number 4, just going through. We're looking now, and there's the little McLaren of Piers Courage. 3rd in the championship table with 19 points at this stage. Across the causeway, look, he's just having a lovely drive there. You can see him setting it up again. Comes out to the outside, taking a wider line. Amon keeping the gate shut. You'll notice this now, that Chris Amon is taking right in through the middle. He wouldn't be taking the line he'd like to be taking, but Courage has got a very, very fast car around this particular part of the circuit. Coming into the pit straight now, you'll see him take a tighter line, see? And there's Amon looking for him again in the mirrors. Gardner's there, but there's the 1.6-litre car getting really up and going at this point. Very, very stable indeed.
It should, I think our cars should be capable of getting very close to Jimmy. Whether, in fact, in the race, this will be so or not, remains to be seen. But I think that, although he's done a very fast time, that our cars should be, anyway, Denny Hulme and myself, that is, should be able to run at least 2nd and 3rd behind him.
And we've had news that the first 6 places are separated by only 5 seconds, with Clark 1.5 seconds in front. But the big news too is that Jack Brabham has passed Denny Hulme, and he's now running in either 6th or 5th place. We'll check them as they come round, but car number 2 is moving up to be a real challenger to the minor place getters.
Well, there's a long way to go in the race yet, and there he is, Jack Brabham, one of the most famous motor racing drivers ever. And he got past, there's quite a cloud of dust there. I think that would probably come from Jack, who's starting to use all the circuits. There he is, number 2, in his very characteristic style of getting the tail out on the rough. Very, very disheartening for anyone following behind, but he uses all the track. It's just the way he's driven. And you'll see him get the tail set up. There he is, moving it through the corner very fast, and he's after Frank Gardner. So there with the placings now, Jimmy Clark, Graham Hill in second place, fourth is Chris Amon in the Ferrari, then we've got fourth place is Piers Courage, then we've got Frank Gardner just narrowly holding off Jack Brabham, and Denny Hulme, who was Brabham's teammate last year and who won the 1967 World Championship, is back in 7th place. Into the braking area again for Creek. Courage going through, still holding 4th place. Gardner, Brabham. Here's Brabham just into the picture now. There he goes now. Car number 1 on the screen now, the 1.6 litre Remco Brabham Ford of Denny Hulme. Had a very bad smash in the New Zealand Grand Prix when he collided with a slower car and wrecked the chassis completely. They flew out another chassis, and he's got the car going now, but hasn't had a very happy Tasman series at all. Come on fresh from his World Championship victory in 1967.
Power road ratio, I should think we're about the same as Jimmy. He makes up a little bit on the side of the straight that they have here. Well, not totally big, but it's straight. And we gain it on the home run, I would think. Coming back through the narrow part of the circle, I'm sure our car is much more controllable than Jimmy's.
I see through the S's, would you have an advantage?
It's quite a bit. Well, we obviously must have a bit better advantage than what Jimmy's got anyway.
You'd be able to go into corners deeper on braking?
We don't really, because we don't have the weight to stop. And we're running the same size tyres, so therefore we must be able to stop that much quicker anyway.
I see. Have you been to Warwick Farm before?
Yes, I came here in 1967. Yeah, 1964, I think it was. I was in the second position on the grid. In 1964, the clutch gave out, and I was about to drop the flag, and I stalled it on the
Do the black...
Well, they're coming over across the north and crossing again. The rest of the field going, and someone's in trouble. We'll just keep this on here. It looks like it could be just trying to pick it up as Denny Hulme. And he's trying to make out to the slower car number 19, who's in front of him. He's waving furiously to Max Stewart to let him over and, and let Hulme continue on through it. The blue flags are being waved quite vigorously by the flag marshals, and that was Denny Hulme signalling that he was coming through very fast. So here he comes. He's lying in 7th place at the stage, but the battle is really up front. And there's Brabham settling down into it very nicely, driving extremely well, and he's after Frank Gardner. Now look at this. Watch the tailpipes on the old Brabham, because they're starting to smoke a little at the stage. Whether it's oil blowing onto them or not, we just can't quite see. A slower car in front. Here's the leader coming into view now, Jimmy Clark. On the braking, you see the car moving a little bit as they go through on the braking area. Clark with his arm up through there, just getting it round through the corner. Hill in behind him. There's the Ferrari. Sixth is Jimmy Clark coming through. You'll see him chop the left-hander, set it up for the right-hander. There he goes, right out to the outside and back through it again. Very, very nice. A beautiful entry into the corner so that he can get the maximum power and speed out of them. No doubt about it. One of the finest motor racing drivers ever. Coming in there, you'll see him set the car up. Big Lotus Ford 49 with the 2.5 litre engine there. Being waved on by another slower car as he goes to the right side of the corner for the line. Just coming in now, car number 6. A winner right from its first race. This is the car that won the first race ever for the Lotus 49 of Colin Chapman's. It won the Dutch Grand Prix last year for Jimmy Clark and Colin Chapman. And down he goes. Today it's fitted with a 2.5 litre engine, and it seems to be performing very, very smoothly indeed.
Now we have in a position after 14 laps covered out of the 45, which is almost a third of the way through the race. In front, car 6, which is Jim Clark. Second, number 5, Graham Hill. Then car 4, Chris Amon. 18, Piers Courage. 8, Frank Gardner. 2, Jack Brabham. And 1, Denny Hulme. So those 7 cars have opened up a gap of about 12 seconds over the remainder. And running next is car number 11, which is Pedro Rodriguez of Mexico. Number 3 is running next. That's Johnny Harvey. Then we have car number 9. That's Kevin Bartlett. And car number 12, that's Rick Attwood. So the international drivers are all running in the first 11 places. So after the first 7, there's a fairly big gap of about 12 to 15 seconds, and the interest naturally must be in the leading group of 7. We noticed that Jack Brabham, you mentioned the smoke dropping out there, Bill, he fell back a bit away from Frank Gardner in the last lap. He was right on his tail, and now he's dropped back to be about 35 yards behind him as they came down the straight. So Brabham may be in slight trouble.
It's into Polo again for the... There's a great battle going on there. Amon just keeping this car of Courage's out, the 1.6 litre car. Amon in the Ferrari, Courage giving him a real battle for it. There's the V6 2.4 litre Dino Ferrari of Chris Amon.
And we've had news from the pits that car number 9, that's Kevin Bartlett, who was challenging Johnny Harvey, car number 3 for the best Australian performer, is in the pits. His car has overheated. That's bad luck for him. He's in the pits now. Also in there is car number 19, Max Stewart. Overheating is quite a possibility today because the temperature here at Warwick Farm is round about 95 degrees.
And Amon's car is definitely not handling well. You might have noticed him coming out of Creek Corner, the tail moved considerably on it. He could be having quite a hard time there, and this 1.6 litre car of Courage's is really looking for the gap past him. Graham Hill has opened up a little bit more of a gap on them as they come through, but Amon's still being pressed extremely hard indeed. Just can't use all the power. He hasn't got that much more, I don't think, that at this stage that he can use on the circuit. It could be the tyres giving him a bit of bother. But he's still going on, and there he is moving wide to keep through, cutting across to get the right line, and he's keeping out this 1.6 litre car of Courage. He's got to get a break of a couple of seconds over him to keep safe, so that he can concentrate on the way forward instead of looking behind. There he is, a fine cockpit shot of him, and he goes through Chris Amon, number 1 Ferrari driver. Courage right in behind him. Piers Courage out in Australasia to make a name for himself, and this he's done very well indeed, with his very fine 3rd place so far in the championship table. Coming in now is Jimmy Clark on braking. Hill in behind him in 5. Amon, here's Courage, looking to put the pressure on Amon, out of Creek Corner, which could be getting considerably slippery at this point. No, a lot better exit out by the Ferrari that time. He's still got that 15 yards or so over them. Over Courage. There they go, clipping through. Once again, into the left-hander. They'll come out right. That's it to get through this very, very sharp corner, the right-hander.
We've given you some pit information which wasn't quite accurate. I said that Kevin Bartlett was out of the race. Well, Kevin's still there in car 9. It was car number 7, Glenn Cusack, which is withdrawn from the race. Car 7 is out of the race, Glenn Cusack. Bartlett is still out on the track, running now in 9th place.
The position at 16 laps completed of the 45-lap journey is that Jimmy Clark is leading by 2 seconds to Graham Hill, who is 5 seconds in front of Chris Amon. 6 seconds behind him is Piers Courage, and then 8 seconds behind Courage is Frank Gardner.
And it appears there that Jack Brabham has passed Frank Gardner. We see car 2 coming ahead of car 8, so Jack Brabham has moved up into 5th place, and car 8 Gardner has now moved back into 6th place ahead of car 1, which is Denny Hulme. That confirms it, Bill. Definitely Jack Brabham is now up into 5th place ahead of Frank Gardner, and behind him there we saw number 1 Denny Hulme is there, but certainly Jack Brabham is the man who's making the most impression on the field at this particular stage. And we did say just a few laps ago that Jack's car didn't appear to be going that well, with a bit of smoke popping up, but now he's made real recoveries. Everything seems to be working all right, and he's going to challenge now on car 18, who's the one in front. That's Piers Courage. Let's see if we can get a margin here between the two. Jack approaching the causeway in front of him, and there's the margin now to Piers Courage in 4th place. Ahead of him, Chris Amon, Graham Hill, and out in front, Jim Clark.
Yes, the race is developing. I can't see where the pattern is. At present, it's just that the Lotuses of Graham Hill and Jimmy Clark are not well out in front, but they're keeping out in front. It's Graham Hill who's doing the blocking work for Jimmy Clark. There's no doubt about this. Clark wants those points here, and Graham Hill is a little late. He's only come out to do the 4 Australian races. To get valuable points for him at this stage is quite important.
Now into the straight we see Clark in the foreground, then Hill going over to the left. Behind them is Courage, Brabham's in the straight, and in fact these 7 are still within the distance of Hulme straight. Those 7 cars, 6, 5, 4, 18, 2, 8 and 1, and they've been that all the way.
I noticed that Jim Clark really slows it down coming out of Creek, possibly waiting to get it in a straight line before he gets all the power on track. And these cars can really get up from these slow corners and drag away. They have a lot of power, a lot of torque, and the Ford engine really gets up on its cams, which develop the power, and you can see him really scooted away from there, but he's just a little slow out of Creek. If later on in the race someone is challenging, this could be the place to get him, coming out of Creek Corner. There's the leader, Jimmy Clark, going over the causeway, looking a little unstable at this point. He's moving the car across the circuit quite a bit. He's got a lot of pressure off him at this stage of the race. And there you can see the nose lifting up on the Lotus as it gets this terrific power run down here through into the right-hander for the run down the pit straight. Looking the edges once again. He's starting to use the road more now. In fact, looking more ragged now in his driving than he did in the earlier laps. It could be that possibly the track is getting a little slippery and he's finding it a little harder for the tyres to counteract with this. Second car is still Graham Hill.
And to give you some idea of the closeness of this race, the first 7 cars are separated by only 10 seconds. Jim Clark about 2 seconds ahead of Graham Hill, a couple of seconds back to Chris Amon, then only a second margin to Piers Courage in car 18, then Jack Brabham in 2, a couple of seconds further back to Frank Gardner, followed by Denny Hulme, who's in 7th place. But coming up to the halfway stage of the race, to have only 10 seconds separating 7 cars, I would describe this as one of the best races we've seen here for years.
It's one of the best races you could see anywhere, Norm, I think. I'm sure of this. It's a very interesting battle. There's this great battle going on between Amon and Courage. Courage probing hardly, trying to get through on the corners.
They've just completed 19 laps, so they have 26 laps to go. They'll reach the halfway stage in the middle of the 22nd lap. That's in about 3 laps' time. And this is where the telling pressure comes on, Bill, where the field has settled down, and not really settled down, I'd say, into an absolute order. We can see challenges coming from everywhere, but it's going to be a test of stamina for the cars and driver from here on, and the pressure is right on any one of those drivers in the first 7.
It's a telling pace, all right, Norman, a very, very telling pace. They're going extremely fast. There's Hill going through, and it gives you some idea that Jimmy Clark has cleared out a little bit. There's Amon right in behind him, he's getting a little bit of a break on Courage's car, I think, at the stage, but Courage hanging on like a leech. He's right in there, following the Ferrari every move. Right, the leader coming down to us now at about 135 to 140 miles an hour. Jimmy Clark onto the braking area. Here's Graham Hill arriving. Filling up the screen now is the Ferrari, and right in behind is the 1.6-litre McLaren. Through they go, the right-hander at Creek Corner. There's Amon, keeping it very nicely, the power on this. At that time it was Courage who was a little bit slower in the exit, but he makes up for it, getting the car rolling along very, very quick indeed. So after 20 laps, the situation is that Jimmy Clark is leading by 3 seconds to Graham Hill, who's 5.5 seconds in front of Chris Amon. Our time difference here states that it's 6.5 seconds to Piers Courage, but that I have to dispute, because Courage would be about 2 seconds behind Amon, and then we have behind Jack Brabham about 8 seconds behind Courage. Through they go, the Ferrari. As we told you earlier, a complete engine rebuild. Oh, there's Courage starting to get a little tweaky, trying a little hard. Trying to get it going just that little bit faster through the causeway so that he can get up to the short straight where he accelerates very quickly indeed. But the Ferrari just got the brake on him a bit there. Amon still in third place. Courage in behind. 2.4 litres to 1.6. Both cars going very well indeed. Just going in as you can see Graham Hill going out of the picture as the second and third car, or third and fourth cars come through. Graham Hill is still in second place. The leader is Jimmy Clark approaching us now. Car number 6, 5 coming into the screen. On braking is Graham Hill. Look at the difference in lines here. Here's Cuff's pressing very hard to get past Amon, but Amon there going very well indeed, keeps him out. Courage having a very nice drive. You can see him sneaking the gears as he goes down, round through this particular part of the course. Jimmy Clark.
We mentioned about 10 laps ago that the first 7 cars were 10 seconds in front of the next car, which was running 8th. That margin has now been increased to 30 seconds. So the first 7 cars are 30 seconds away from the head of the field. The gap between car number 1, which is Denny, and the next car, which is car number 11, Pedro Rodriguez, approximately 30 seconds. So the top 7 are moving bit by bit away from the remainder of the field. And the order of this particular time is car 6, Jim Clark, car 5, Graham Hill, car 4, Chris Amon, car 18, Piers Courage, car 2, Jack Brabham, car 8, Frank Gardner, and car 1, Denny Hulme. The margin between first and 7, approximately 10 seconds.
Coming through now, there's the Ferrari. Now there's the Repco Brabham of Jack Brabham, who's closed the gap up quite drastically on Piers Courage. So now he's looking at the 1.6 litre car of Courage, and he's starting to move very, very fast indeed. He's making a run at the stage, I would say. Someone really out on the rough down there. Brabham it is coming through. There goes Jimmy Clark, Graham Hill, and there's Brabham going for the run on the inside on braking, but is he going to do it? No, Courage closes him out. You can see the confidence that Brabham's got in the 1.6 litre McLaren driver as he let him come right across in front of him. It was Courage's corner. So now this is where the argument is. We've got Jack Brabham starting to press hard on Courage, and Courage will be putting the pressure on Amon. But Amon pulling away a bit at this stage. As he goes out of the picture, there's oh, there's Brabham really in the rough. He's lost it nearly. No, he held on to it. Oh, that's really motor racing. He's trying extremely hard. He actually got the rear wheels lifted off the ground. He was in trouble then, Jack Brabham, and as you can see, he's slowed back quite considerably. They'll give him a lap or so to get rid of that one. That was quite a nasty one for him. He got those wheels lifted off, and it was very, very near it. Trying extremely hard indeed, possibly a little bit too hard at this stage. The track getting a little slippery. Brabham getting the tail out a little wide and getting into the rough and nearly losing in a big way. First bit of incident we've actually seen so far on the journey. Coming through now into the right-hander, you can see the pipes of the 2.5 litre Repco engine right up the top, characteristic to the... Coming down through here, we've got the oil and bits of oil and rubber that's on the circuit, and this is the reason why possibly it's getting a little bit slippery. The heat, of course, which keeps it going right through.
And from our clockers, we see that Jack Brabham, who was in 10th place at the end of lap 1, has been lapping about a second better than Piers Courage and been catching him at that rate. Of course, that little mishap there has dropped him back a bit further, but Jack Brabham is lapping very fast indeed, a second better than Courage, but he would be lapping at approximately the same rate, it seems, as the leader, Jim Clark. Brabham started well back on the grid. He was the 10th fastest qualifier, and he's moved now from 10th up to 5th, so he's passed 4 international drivers in front of him.
Yes, he's got through some of the slower cars, and coming in now, sorting out that corner a little better that time, getting the tail impact. He's driving a lot deeper now. You'll see him just clip through the edges. He's closed up once again the gap onto the McLaren driver, Courage. The situation is still that Jimmy Clark is still leading, but there's Jack Brabham back in 5th place at this point, and as Norman May has told you, and that's Courage's turn to get in the rough there. And there's Jack sort of signalling to something in front. They've done 24 laps, nearly halfway through. So you're 45, there's over halfway, 45 lap race, 21 laps to go. Courage, car number 18, and there's Jimmy Clark going through, 6, 5 is Graham Hill. They're getting past the slower car number 22, which is Costanzo. And look at this, there's Brabham using the car right up on his braking. He's right leaving his braking late, coming down Hume Straight. But Courage has just got a little bit too much work through the corners. But there's Brabham streaking past Costanzo as he goes through. Car number 2. Swinging through. Come see them. Courage a little bit faster over this particular section of the circuit, where it gets these changes of direction. But here's a go by Jack Brabham. No, he's out in it again. Left his braking right late. He's trying extremely hard. I haven't seen him try like this for a long time. This is one of his hardest efforts, I'm sure, even when he had Chris Amon on his tail in the 1967 British Grand Prix. He had to keep him out then, but this time he's applying the pressure and giving a great lesson, I'm sure, to young Piers Courage in front of him. But Courage is battling along like a veteran at this point, and he's keeping out Jack Brabham. He's obviously in trouble. He's making a pit stop. He's coming into the pits. We'll keep the camera on him in the pits there and see what's going on. There he is. He's calling in. Roy Billington rushes up. Something's wrong with the front of the car. They're moving in now. Brabham sitting in the car. Roy Billington working on it. It's obviously something wrong there with the braking system, though yes, it looks like they're putting oil in the car. It looks like oil going.
Jack, can you tell me what's the matter? I think it appears to be he's running out of oil. They're filling it up with oil. The mechanics are very busy. They haven't even got time to give us a reason why he's in, which is not unusual for the Brabham team, mind you. Anyway, it appears that it's a lack of oil. His oil pressure and his fuel pressure seem all right. So I can't see any other good reason. He's been blowing out a hell of a lot of oil. There's oil all between the banks on the V8. Anyway, I'll hand you back now to Norman May.
And reporting in the pits for us was Paddy McNally, the second of our expert commentators, up to the minute news on Jack Brabham. So the order now, car 6 is in front, Jim Clark. Car 5 running second, Graham Hill. Car 4, Chris Amon is third. Car 18, Piers Courage is running in 4th place, and there he is. Then car 8, Frank Gardner, followed by car 1, Denny Hulme. And those 6 cars now with Brabham in the pits. He's still there. He's been there now for almost a minute. It would mean that those 6 are 30 to 35 seconds ahead of the next car. And Jack Brabham is going out of the pits again. He would have lost, I'd say, at least a minute in that pit stop, dropping him back to about 10th place.
Yes, this is possibly one of the reasons where things are getting a little bit slippery, is that if Jack Brabham had to call for oil, obviously he's getting oil surge on the corners. The oil gauge would be moving across from side to side, denoting to him that it was running short of oil. But there's Jimmy Clark going out of the corner. He's coming into view now. Clark it is, coming in. He's faultless actually with his setting up for the car on the corners. He allows for the slippery conditions, which means a little slower, a little bit more cautious through these very, very tight, deceptive corners. Coming now round into Polo, getting away on acceleration again. You can get some idea that he shoots along this short straight.
And a further pit report, Jack Brabham stopped, as Paddy said, for more oil plus a soft drink. I wouldn't be surprised about that. It's very hot down there. And his pit stop was 100 seconds. 1 minute and 40 seconds, which would put Jack Brabham in an impossible position now, well back in the field. Of course, the only chance he would have if 5 or 6 other drivers all out of the race, and that's very, very unlikely, particularly the way Jim Clark's going out there in front with his teammate Graham Hill right behind him. So in car number, it's 6, 5, 4, 18, 8 and 1. And they're the only ones really in contention with this race now, approaching the 2/3 stakes. And there he is, the winner, or the leader, Jim Clark, going out of Freak Corner into the S's with Graham Hill behind him in second place.
Yes, here's Clark the reliability of the Lotus Ford engine certainly proving itself over the last few Tasman Cup races. Round he goes through there. And he's definitely got a brake on Graham Hill at this point. Streaking round towards the causeway, one of the most deceptive parts of the circuit. He's onto the braking now, setting it up, a little bit of power through here at about 70 miles an hour. Swinging away over to the right-hand side, clipping the edge, then back to the left-hand to get through this right-hand corner. His entry and exit, there's Hill going through. Follow that, and Amon is starting to press up a bit. Courage has closed up a little more on Amon. There's Graham Hill in the second Team Lotus car.
Interesting thing here, Bill, in the Tasman Championship points, if Clark runs first and Amon second, they would be dead level. But if Graham Hill can keep between them and finishes in the order as they are now, it would mean that Amon has been deposed by Jim Clark after the race as the leader in the Tasman Championship. So Graham Hill, Clark's teammate, is doing the right job by keeping between the two drivers.
Yes, this is the tactics, I think, that the Team Lotus people have got on, because whether Graham Hill gets through, though he'd like to win this, no doubt, but even if he doesn't, the points aren't much to him. But he can keep young Chris Amon from getting these points, which is a very important thing. And Amon needs points at present. He's had an engine failure last week at Surface where he didn't score at all, and the Ferrari team have worked considerably hard to get this car set up here for today. Round through they come now. Courage in behind him, and you can see there that he's really driving extremely well. Denny Hulme, we've lost him actually. We've had such an interesting duel up in the front end of the race, and with Jack Brabham making his pit stop and everything, it's quite an exciting thing here. But here's the Ferrari, the Dino. You can see it just moving a little bit there, and Amon getting very nicely indeed through the causeway, and there's Hill just in front of him. These two having a fabulous dice.
The official position after 28 laps, Jim Clark was 6 seconds ahead of Graham Hill, only 1 second back to Chris Amon, a further 1 second back to Piers Courage, then 9 seconds back to Denny Hulme, who's gone in front of Frank Gardner. 9 seconds back to Denny Hulme, is now 2 seconds in front of Frank Gardner, and Brabham, who was in 5th place before the pit stop, is now back in 10th place in the field.
Right, now I would say at this stage that Chris Amon is starting to apply the pressure. Through he goes. You can see he's closed up now on Graham Hill. He's starting to leave that little bit of a gap back to Courage. The engine's performing obviously okay, so he's starting to go a little bit harder. Here's Clark coming into view, or he's just gone out of picture. And here's the other two arriving now. Now here's Amon going, having a go on the outside. No, not at this stage. Graham Hill right on the brakes that time. As through goes Chris Amon.
Had further news, another international driver has pulled out of the race. He's down in the pits, and to get a report, we'll cross down to Paddy McNally.
Well, Richard, you've just come into the pit, I see. What's the problem?
Well, it's stuck in 5th gear going down the straight, and I waited till I got to the pits to try and select another one. It's got 2 gears at once. If I'd done it while I was going along, it would have broken the gearbox. So it's finished anyway.
That's that as far as you're concerned.
Well, it'd take too long to do.
I see. We better pass us back to Norman May, who'll tell us how the race is progressing. Thank you very much indeed, Richard.
Okay.
And here's Bill Bryce with the news on what's happening. Jim Clark's still there, but where's Chris Amon in relation to Graham Hill? And that's the important part of the race now. We see car 5, and that's Chris Amon right behind him.
Yes, it's Graham Hill, but it's quite a gap. He's got away a wee bit there onto Amon, but Amon was starting to make a pro. But this is a very, very difficult part of it, of course, when you start to apply the pressure, especially to a driver of the caliber of Graham Hill, who is really born under pressure, because this is where he's always is. He's always in the pressure spot, and he knows how to handle it. He just takes it as it comes. We must just get we're just closed up onto these cars. Here's Jimmy Clark coming into the braking area. Behind him is Courage. While we were in the pits, it looks like something has happened to the Ferrari, because I'm sure that looks like Courage. We'll just get a close-up on it. Yes, it's Courage. It's in 3rd place. It looks like Amon is retired somewhere. We're just looking for him now. While we were in the pits, we've lost him there. Courage coming through. So Courage has got through into third place. Jack Brabham. He'll have moved up another spot now if Amon is out. Brabham is just going through. Hill it is, Graham Hill. So this is what we've got to find out, where the Ferrari is. I see it, it's just coming back into the main straight now, a long way back. He's obviously got into a bit of trouble somewhere because he's just in front of Denny Hulme. Denny Hulme in car number 1, and there's Amon in car 4.
So the position now, 6-5-18-4-1-8. That's 2/3 of the race over. Jim Clark in car 6 is in front. Graham Hill in car 5 is running second place, 7 seconds behind Jim Clark. A further 1 second back to Piers Courage, who's in third place. Chris Amon has dropped 9 seconds back after what appeared to be a mishap. He's now back in fourth place. And then 1 second back to Denny Hulme. And Frank Gardner is running in sixth place. Jack Brabham, who had some trouble, took on a lot of oil, is in ninth place at the moment. And he's lost about 100 seconds because of a pit stop. Also, Rick Attwood has dropped out of the race, and the position repeated again after 30 laps with 15 laps to go. Jim Clark, Graham Hill, Piers Courage, Chris Amon, Denny Hulme and Frank Gardner. And those 6 have a lead now of about 45 seconds over the remainder of the field.
There's Jim Clark once again breaking the street corner. Amon has dropped back to fourth place. He's getting waved on by a slower car. Through he goes. There's the blue flag being waved quite vigorously to the slower cars, but they know that he's there. The placings we got him now as at lap 32 is that Jim Clark is leading from Graham Hill. Third place is Piers Courage. Fourth is Chris Amon, who's obviously come to grief a little bit there. Then we've got Denny Hulme and Frank Gardner. That's the way they are with lap 32. There's 13 laps to go in the Warwick Farm International 100. Round they swing now, and it's the leader, Jimmy Clark, going over the causeway. Hill going through now. He's the third car there, and he's diving on the inside of the slower car, and going with him is Courage, Piers Courage. See the McLaren, the size of it, a little bit smaller in the wheelbase and very much slimmer, lighter car, about 200 pounds or more lighter than the 2.5 litre car. Courage applying the pressure now. But there's the acceleration of the 2.5 litre engine on Graham Hill's car, the Lotus Ford 49, getting away there. Over they go past the southern crossing. We'll get a time difference just how far behind Amon is on Courage at this point. Slower cars, Kevin Bartlett on the screen, but here's the duel of the day, Graham Hill and Piers Courage. They had a fantastic drive, both these drivers last week. Courage wide that time, leaving it a little late, but had enough leeway in it to catch the car and set it in the right way or for the next corner. Hill again, driving faultlessly as usual. As through he goes now, car number 5. Snapping at his heels is this little 1.6 litre McLaren Cosworth. Stretching along past the slower cars. Braking hard for the causeway, and right in behind is the 1.6 litre McLaren Cosworth 4. Here's Courage. Driving it very, very well indeed. And here he is looking for the gap. You'll see him start to probe on the inside. He goes to the inside, to the outside. But Hill is a very, very skilled campaigner. Keeps out this very impetuous, possibly is what he's thinking, 26-year-old London driver Piers Courage. Chris Amon, 10 seconds in fourth place behind Courage. The leader coming through, Jimmy Clark.
And to give you some more margins, car 6 in front, this is after 34 laps, 11 laps to go. 7 seconds between car 6 and car 5. That's car 6, Jim Clark in front. Car 5 is Graham Hill. Then only half a second back to car 18, which is Piers Courage. Then we mentioned it is officially 11.5 seconds back to car 4. That's Chris Amon. And only a half a second back to car 1, which is Denny Hulme. Then 5.5 seconds more to car number 8, which is Frank Gardner. And running in 7th place is car number 11, a long way back. That's Pedro Rodriguez of Mexico. Great interest, of course, is that half-second gap between cars 5 and 18 in the race for second. And what an important race this is as far as the Championship Series goes. Because if Jim Clark stays out in front and Graham Hill stays second, it means that Chris Amon has well back in the running. So Chris Amon, to stay in front in this Tasman point score, must pass at least 2 cars before the end of the race.
Yes, Norman, the most important thing is that Amon is losing the last of the twisty circuits. Next week they go on to Sandown Park, where we have the very, very long straights. And then, of course, there's Longford, where it's definitely 2 power circuits, and the Ferrari car just hasn't got the power at this stage. It's around about 40 or 50 brake horsepower down, no doubt, on the others. And that's just about the story as they go through for these very, very fast circuits. So this is where Amon had to do well to win if possible.
Now, if Jim Clark can stay out in front with 10 laps to go, he'll create history, because he'll be the first man to win the Warwick Farm International race 3 times. The first 2 were won by Sterling Moss, the next 2 were won by Jack Brabham, the next 2 by Jim Clark, and then Jackie Stewart won last year. And of course, Jackie hasn't the chance to make it 2 in a row as everybody else has done, because he's a non-starter. So this sequence of 2 each is going to stop this year, and Jim Clark, who's won the race twice before, in 1965 and 1966, could make it the first man ever to win it 3 times. And what a great race this has been over the years, Bill, with names like Sterling Moss, Jack Brabham, Jim Clark and Jackie Stewart winning these events over the past 7 years.
Oh yes, it's only the top international drivers come to Warwick Farm, of course, Norman, and it is one of the main races on the Australasian calendar. There's no doubt about this. They certainly do turn on a fabulous performance.
We could say, too, that the Tasman Series is one of the success stories of motor racing in the Southern Hemisphere. A few years ago, we might have 4 or 5 international drivers. Now the total has climbed up to 9. On the track today, we had 4 world champions, and also another great personality in Sterling Moss out here as a spectator. But there it is, 4 world champions competing in the one race on Australian soil. And the 8-race series held in January and February each year is really a tremendous tribute to the organisers and to the Australian Automobile Racing Club, their counterparts in New Zealand. And the whole thinking has made Australia now a world force in motor racing. And to have a series like this going, it's getting bigger and better each year. And I think this is the most complete field we've had, the best class of field, and also we've seen the best race.
Yes, there's no doubt about it. Of the 6 races that I've watched, this is one, keeping right in amongst it is this whole field, and they're all going, which is the main thing. The retirements that we've seen, of course, the BRMs haven't looked competitive at all. And the situation is we've got it after 36 laps is that Jimmy Clark is still leading.
It is here that Chris Amon must be in trouble because he's fallen back behind Denny Hulme. So the order now is number 6, Jim Clark, 5, Graham Hill, 18, Piers Courage, 1, Denny Hulme, 4, Chris Amon, and 8, Frank Gardner. But let's see that. We'll have to confirm that in a few moments' time. We'll make sure of that. Jim Clark's just gone past us here to complete what will be about 8 laps to go. Graham Hill's gone through second. Third placing is number 18, that's Piers Courage. We're very interested now in the next 2. The next 2 would be car 1 and car 4. And yes, we can confirm that now. There's car 1 going through in 4th place. That's Denny Hulme. And Chris Amon, who was right up with the leaders early, must have got some minor trouble with his car. Bill's having a close look at the car. There's not much we can see from this distance, but certainly something is affecting Chris Amon because he's obviously not lapping as fast as he did some 10 laps ago.
Yes, I would say he's definitely in handling troubles. The car hasn't looked terribly stable coming out of the creek corner. So this is possibly where we're striking a little bit of trouble. Amon, as I mentioned earlier, they've had to do sort of 2 engine rebuilds overnight. And with 37 laps completed, it's still Jimmy Clark leading from Graham Hill. Then we've got Piers Courage in 3rd spot. 4th is Denny Hulme. 5th, Chris Amon.
Just looking at the point score, Bill, 9 points for first placing, which means Jim Clark would go up to 33. Chris Amon has 27 before this race. Now he's back in, what, 5th place. So for 5th place, he would only get 2 points. He would be 29 points, which would mean that Jim Clark would go into the last race of the series 4 points ahead, and that might be conclusive, although Chris Amon looked to be the winner of the series after all of the races in New Zealand.
Yes, this could be so, but as I mentioned earlier, Norman, they're running out of the circuits that suit the Ferrari. So, and over the last couple of races, it just hasn't looked, you know, as reliable as it had in New Zealand, where it never missed a beat, with 2 wins, a 2nd and a 4th place. Then at Surface Paradise last week, they had engine malfunction, and then we've got this trouble today over the last weekend or so, where once again it hasn't proved terribly reliable. Looks like that we've had a breakdown here, Norman.
Yes, car 9, Kevin Bartlett, is out of the race. The trouble there, the rear left half shaft broke. Is that right, rear left half shaft?
That would be it. It's the drive shaft, actually, that goes through on these old Climax engines, and that they were a little bit of trouble there for them, and this is obviously broken off at the, possibly at the hub, I should think.
Well, according to our estimation, Jim Clark has completed 38 laps. He would have less than 7 laps to go. So it's getting towards the closing stages of the race now, and it's Jim Clark, Graham Hill. The 3rd placing has changed, or Piers Courage is still 3rd, but the changes in 4th and 5th, where Denny Hulme has moved ahead of Chris Amon. But Jim Clark with a very handy lead of 6.5 seconds. It's going to take a bit of pulling back. But we've had news that Amon has gone ahead of Hulme as he went past us here about a minute ago. Hulme was definitely in front of Amon, but the order may have changed on this. So let's look. Jim Clark has just gone through past us here. His lead is still about 6 or 7 seconds. Looking for Graham Hill. Graham Hill has dropped back slightly. In fact, the lead of Jim Clark's is higher even. And here they come. Yes, it's going to be 4 ahead of 1. So Amon has moved back.
Norman, I didn't see Piers Courage go through.
No, I didn't see him at all, so let's pick them up if we can. There might be some difference there.
Car number 18 we're looking for.
So over at Creek, that's the order, still the same. It's 6, Jim Clark, 5, Graham Hill, 18, Piers Courage, 4 now in 4th place is Chris Amon, then 1 is Denny Hulme, and 8 is Frank Gardner. So what can Chris Amon do on his last half dozen laps? Does he have a chance to get himself right back into this point score by overtaking cars number 18 and 5? I don't think he can get anywhere near Jim Clark. The way he came down the last lap, his lead would have increased now to something like 10 seconds. And if Amon can make a mighty finish here in the last 4 or 5 laps, he's going vitally for points. And if he gets closer and closer to these 2 ahead, it might be a very exciting finish for those minor placings.
Yes, well, you can never tell as to how what will ever happen in a motor race, and it's only when the checkered flag. Jim Clark and Invercargill, the last of the New Zealand part of the series, was 1 minute 40 seconds in front, and he, with about 8 laps to go, he lost the car in a big way, and this caused him to ultimately to retire, sort of finish 2nd. We thought he was going to retire one part of it when he put it through a fence. But there's Courage now, and he should be applying the pressure very, very much onto Graham Hill. We'll just try and get them. Still Jimmy Clark. Graham Hill there.
We have only 5 laps to go. Jim Clark, the leader, has completed 40 laps. 40 laps he has completed, 5 laps to go. Jim Clark in car 6 ahead of Graham Hill in 5. 3rd placing is Piers Courage, who's in 18, just behind the one we see now. You'll see Piers Courage come in. He should be, there he is now. And then the gap back to Chris Amon, Denny Hulme, and Frank Gardner. But the lead by Jim Clark is well out now, up around the 10-second mark, and looking for, I saw Jack Brabham go through, so Jim Clark is almost lapping Jack Brabham. Jack Brabham 2. Frank Gardner has pulled out of the race, and Brabham has moved ahead of Rodriguez. So Brabham now is in 6th place, almost a lap behind Jim Clark.
There's the McLaren Cosworth Ford driver, Piers Courage, setting up nicely for the run into the main straight, into the pit straight. And here he is, the tail just moving slightly. Very nice exit that time. No pressure on him, in 3rd place.
As they came through, Bill, I saw that Jim Clark's lead has been reduced, whether he's taking it easy in these last 4 or 5 laps. But Graham Hill would be no more than 75 yards behind him. So let's look at the margin. That's for, we see Chris Amon, who's in 4th place, but the interest is in the leader now, because Jim Clark is not so far ahead of Graham Hill and Piers Courage with only 4 laps to go. Now that's Graham Hill. Now let's see where Jim Clark is. He's around there somewhere in the S's, but he wouldn't be any more than about 75 yards in front. And let's see who we see now. Yes, this should be car number 6, is it? No, 5 that is. We're still looking for the leader. Car 5 is running in 2nd place. And there's the leader in front, is it? Now let's watch for the 2 of them. Now here's this margin. Is there something wrong with Clark's car? Is he going as fast as he was? Because Graham Hill's moving right up on top of him. Is this the drama of the race, or is that a slower car? That must be a slower one.
Going through there.
But somewhere we have Graham Hill.
It's one of the 1.5s. There's Graham Hill going through. But I tell you what, there's somebody
Jim
there.
Clark
It's
now.
pulling over. It's Glyn Scott getting out of the way for Jimmy Clark. So Clark is still holding on to his 6-second lead over his teammate Graham Hill, who's around about, I think, a couple of seconds only in front of Piers Courage. We'll look for them now as they come through. The Courage seems to have dropped back a little bit at this stage. There's Hill, and there's no sign of Courage. We'll just wait for them now. There goes. That's Courage going through there. He's still at 4 or 5 seconds in arrears. Now you'll see them go out of the crossing, and then we look now, they come into the main straight, and Amon was just coming through into the straight as Clark was going out before. So there he comes, swooping in at the top of the screen. This will be Jimmy Clark going through, the time running out fairly rapidly now. Nursing it out very nicely, watching all the track, concentrating at a very, very high level now. Still clipping through the edges. The pressure's definitely on now after about 42 laps completed. The race running out rapidly, and it's still Jimmy Clark who led right from the flag drop. But you don't know until the checkered flag goes down.
What a race, Bill. We saw then the first 3 cars all in the Hulme straight together, which is only a mile or so long. After 42 laps, would you see 3 drivers that close together?
Yes, I think the most interesting part is now is, can Courage, is he quite content to sit in 3rd place? I think he is at this stage. He'd have to be really having a go not to, because this is obviously where he's going to finish if he can keep it on the road. And can Chris Amon make up the ground? But I don't think it is. It's a monumental task for the Ferrari driver, because here comes the other car coming through into view now. There goes Hill. So Courage is obviously just sitting back in 3rd place, keeping a very watchful eye on the Ferrari, which might be possibly coming through now. Now, as he talks, closing up the gap on Courage. This we'll have to sort out for you. And here's Amon. Let's have a look at this. This is getting interesting. There's Courage coming through into view now. Yes, it's Amon there with a slower car in front of him. He'll look forward to try and get past it. He's going to get it possibly on acceleration out of creek. Seems a little, just taking it a little easy at the stage. There he goes on acceleration through into the right-hander. Clipping through, and he'll come out now for the left-hand corner, cutting across the apex. So what we'll try and do is get a time difference on him and Piers Courage at this stage.
And by our lap chart, Bill, we only have 1 lap to go, so Jim Clark is on the last circuit of the course. We'll just check that. It's sometimes difficult to count through 45 laps. We say that Jim Clark is on the last circuit. He should be receiving the checkered flag after 1 more lap. Of course, if he stays out there in front. Graham Hill is running 2nd. And there's Clark going round on what should be the last circuit. And yes, there's the gun going up. So what happened? That went a bit too early, I'd say. That should go off when the race is over. So I'm looking down for the clerk of the course here with the checkered flag. But Clark is coming down the straight, which should be the last time in this race. He's led from last to finish. And Jim Clark, Flying Scott, coming down here, and he's been in front all the way. It's been a mighty performance by him. He recorded 1:27.4 in practice. We'll get some times for him, and it should be that he'll be the new lap record holder here at Warwick Farm. He's already run this race 2 times, in 1965 and in 1966. In 1965, he averaged 86.44 miles an hour for his fastest lap of 1:33.7 and 85.44 miles an hour for the whole race. 1966, he did the fastest lap, 1:34, average 86.17, and for the 45 laps, he also averaged 85.44. So his time in 1955 and 1966 was exactly the same. So it would not surprise if Jim Clark, after a faultless exhibition right through this race, has done an even faster time. The fastest time ever for the 45 laps is 69 minutes and 17.3 seconds. And here he is, Jim Clark, number 6, the Flying Scot, coming down to complete this race and receive the checkered flag. And there it is, the Tasman International Series race is over. Second placing would go to car 5, Graham Hill. Third placing to car number 18, Piers Courage. Fourth placing should be number 4, Chris Amon. And fifth placing should be number 5, Denny Hulme. Unofficial margins between car 6 and car 5, 5.5 seconds, and then 4.5 seconds to car number 18 in third place. First 5 cars are across the line. They are 6, 5, 18, 4 and 1. 6, 5, 18, 4 and 1. Car number 6, Jim Clark of Great Britain. Jim Clark was driving the Lotus 49 Ford V8. Second placing to his teammate Graham Hill in car number 5, also a Lotus 49 Ford V8. In third place was car 18, only 1600 cc's, driven by Piers Courage, United Kingdom, the McLaren Ford Cosworth FVA. In fifth place was car number 4, Chris Amon of New Zealand, the Dino Ferrari V6. And in fifth place rather, was Denny Hulme of New Zealand, the Repco Brabham Ford FVA. So going through those once more, first placing to Jim Clark, car 6, that's the Lotus 49 Ford V8. Second, car 5, Graham Hill, Lotus 49 Ford V8. Third, car 18, Piers Courage, the McLaren Ford Cosworth FVA. Fourth place, Chris Amon, New Zealand, the Dino Ferrari V6, car number 4. And in fifth place, car number 1, Denny Hulme, New Zealand, the Repco Brabham Ford FVA.
Here we are on the start-finish line at Warwick Farm, where a few seconds or a few minutes ago, Jimmy Clark crossed the line to win the 6th in the Tasman Cup Championship races for 1968. Jimmy, on behalf of all the viewers, congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, Bill. It's very enjoyable.
You drove a wonderful race, right from woe to go.
Well, it was a very nice race, and it was a very fast race. The pressure of it was never let up the whole way, with Graham just behind me and then Piers pushing him.
So, did you have any moments at all?
Well, not really. Found that concentration was going once or twice, and a couple of the corners, and round here you've got to be very accurate the whole way, and there was going to lose a little bit of time by doing that.
Yes, we watched you clip a couple of corners and you were getting a little wide. Was it getting very slippery, Jimmy?
Oh, near the beginning of the race it was very slippery, but later on in the race it wasn't too bad, except for a couple of corners where the gravel was being thrown out from the inside. The track was tending to break up a little bit, and it was making it pretty gravelly.
Well, now, this is one circuit where you expected strong Ferrari opposition because of its twisty circuit, their lighter car, and you know, a little bit down on horsepower, but you combated this very well indeed. Right from the start, you got into it. What about your thoughts of this opposition from here?
Well, certainly our cars were probably better geared than last week for this circuit. The gearing was better for the corners and so on and so forth, and it made it a better car.
It's been adapted for the Tasman series. Has this been, you know, terribly successful?
I suppose on reflection now you can't say it is anything but successful, but it's a bit heavier, a bit bigger than I would like to have had a car for this series of races. This car is built for a 3-litre engine developing 400 horsepower with to carry up to about 50 gallons of fuel, whereas we started the race today with 20. It's really too big for this sort of race, but it seems to handle the car very well.
This 2.5-litre engine, it's proving to be very, very reliable now. Also, is it much down on power? I know it's around about 80 to 100 brake horsepower, but is it noticeable, Jimmy? Is it better? Is it more torquey, or has it got any other characteristics towards, you know, easier driving than the 3-litre engine?
No, not really. I was a bit disappointed when I first drove it. It is just down on power when you get near the top end. It comes in at about the same revs, but not quite so viciously. It's easier from that point of view to drive, but it just, when you get onto the straight, it just doesn't have the urge of the 3-litre, obviously.
Well, you've picked up 9 valuable points towards this Cup again, this Tasman Cup Series. This puts you up now with 33 to Chris Amon's, what, 29?
Well, I haven't done my sums yet, Bill.
Yeah, well, I think you'll find that fair, right. Yeah, he got 2 for his also. Where do you feel now? You're getting onto the big power circuits at Sandown Park and at Longford. Do you think you're going to have any advantage over the Ferrari there?
Well, I hope we are. I think it's going to be, our cars should be even better on these 2 circuits than they have been, but of course the old reliability factor creeps into it. This engine that I'm using here has now done 5 races on the trot, and certainly it's going as well as it ever did, but we don't know how long one of these engines is liable to last.
You're well known for your, you know, you keep your engines going for quite a while. Last year you used that little 2-litre engine of yours for, you know, quite a few races.
Yes, I did 6 with one of them last year.
So this is quite remarkable, Jimmy, and you're getting the same sort of trot out of this 2.5-litre Ford engine.
Well, touch wood, it seems to be holding together very well.
Well, touching wood, but this little heather here, is this something you carry with you, or is this just from a well-wisher after the race?
Well, this was just from a well-wisher after the race, and it's a very nice touch of home, I think.
Oh, good. Well, Jimmy, congratulations once again. It was a fine display. I'm sure everybody here today at Warwick Farm enjoyed it, and we're very glad to see you win another fine race.
Thank you very much, Bill. Thank you.